Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Briargreaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody better in the business to work with than the good people over at Briargreaves Insurance. For more information about them, visit their website, briargreavesinsurance.com. Give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Pewter Postgame show as the Bucs just finished up their third and final preseason game of the 2025 season, falling to the Buffalo Bills by a score of 23-19. But don't you worry, Bucs fans. They will play the Bills again, and it'll matter much, much more when they do in the regular season. We've still got a lot to talk about on today's show. We'll recap the game. We'll talk about a player that certainly earned a spot on this team. You can see him in this picture right here. A player that may have knocked himself completely off of the team, even the practice squad. I think you know who we're talking about. And everything else in between with comments and super chats and all that good stuff. So let's get to it. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me live from Raymond James Stadium following the game is SR, Scott Reynolds. How we doing, Scott?
Good. Not as good as Tez Johnson, though. Boy,
yeah.
He had himself a night. 8 catches, 58 yards, including a nice 1-yard touchdown on a pass from Kyle Trask. You know, I asked Kyle Trask about Tez Johnson after the game. And Matt, you and I, we've seen Tez do this in practice before, going back to the OTAs in training camp. There have been some periods where he does kind of take over. Like he'll have 5 or 6 catches on a drive where it will be an entire Tez Johnson drive. There will be 20-minute practice periods where he will have 8 to 10 catches. He just finds a way to get open. He presents himself as a target, always catches the ball and then gets yards after the catch. So it's really amazing to see him do it like under the lights when it matters. But again, as Kyle said, this isn't a surprise to the players and the coaches. They've seen this before. We've seen this before in practice, but for the rest of the Buccaneer fan community, they got to see it tonight. And I did ask Trask how he would grade that backflip by Tez Johnson, and he said a 12 on a 10 scale.
Wow.
And I mean, listen, that it's one thing, as Elijah Roberts told me after the game, it's one thing to do a standing backflip, right? But to do a backflip with all of the pads on and the helmet.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid doesn't have legs. He's got springs, Matt. Look at that. I mean, he's going airborne. That's crazy.
I almost gasped when I saw him do the backflip because we know he obviously is athletic. We know that he's got speed and he can do a lot of great stuff. I didn't know that he had that. I did not know that Tez Johnson had a backflip to just pull out of his back pocket, no pun intended, to do it when he scored his first NFL touchdown, which leads me to think as well, if that's what Tez Johnson did for a preseason game, and let's remember, this was a preseason game, what type of celebration does he have for a regular season game when he scores? Or if it's a go-ahead touchdown or a game-winning touchdown or something like that. Now, that's much further ahead of us, and you know he's got some other spots on the depth chart to move up in front of before he can kind of go make those plays. But what an incredible performance by Tez Johnson this evening. His 8 catches, I mean, you want to talk about separating yourself from everybody else, either in competition with you or just as a receiver or a receiving tight end or running back. His 8 catches, the next closest was 3. So he had 5 more catches than anybody else on this team. And, you know, obviously it's not against the starters with the Bills, but Tez Johnson at least proved that he might be a 7th-round pick, but he ain't a 4th or 5th string type of guy, at least when you put him up against those type of players on the other team. Tez Johnson is knocking on the door of Sterling Shepard, who was going to be wide receiver 3 with Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin Jr. out for the beginning of the season. But Tez Johnson, with that last performance, showed that maybe he's going to earn a couple of reps with the ones eventually in certain situations based on what he did tonight.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And Matt, you and I have kind of said from the beginning, with Chris Godwin out, he's wide receiver 4 on this depth chart, right? He was in no jeopardy of not making this team. He looked that good in the rookie minicamp, the OTAs, the minicamp, training camp. And once he finally got an opportunity to show what he could do last week at Pittsburgh, tonight against Buffalo, you can just see the talent. I mean, this is a 7th-round steal. This guy is going to score touchdowns this year. He's going to get yards and catches. He's going to, I think, have some dynamic punt returns. This is a keeper, and we're going to enjoy the moment now. We're gonna live where our feet are planted right now, but think into the future, like post Mike and post Chris.
Yeah,
you have Emeka Buka, Jalen McMillan, Tez Johnson. I mean, the cupboard is not bare when Mike and Chris eventually ride off into the sunset. And hopefully with another Super Bowl ring on their fingers. In time. We're not trying to whisk them out the door now. By all means, we want to enjoy them while we can. I'm just saying for the longevity of the position, to have Emeka Buka and Tez Johnson and Jalen McMillan to be able to contribute now, but also in the hopper for the future. Like you've got to be like on cloud 9 if you're Jason Light, Todd Bowles, Josh Grizzard, Baker Mayfield. To have that type of longevity at the wide receiver position, it really speaks to the depth of the position. Ryan Miller's going to make this team, I think, as wide receiver 5. And I don't know that Sterling Shepard will make the 53. He might be on the practice squad. We've talked about that before. And then you elevate him in week 1 from the practice squad. He'll be, dressed in Atlanta regardless as the number 3 receiver, whether he's on the 53 or whether he is on the practice squad with an elevation. But this is a really good receiving core. It's only going to get better when J-Mac and Chris Godwin return.
Isn't it funny with a 2025 draft class that we are big fans of, that we thought on paper looked pretty good, but it was predominantly defensive players that were drafted by the team with the exception of 2, and they both happen to be wide receivers and bookended at wide receiver with Emeka Buka in round 1 and Tez Johnson in round 7. The last 2 games, it's the wide receivers out of all the defensive draft picks, it's the wide receivers that we're talking about from the game against the Steelers with Emeka Buka's sensational touchdown in the corner of the end zone, and then Tez Johnson, who hands down was the best player really on offense or defense for the Buccaneers
I agree.
Tonight. And just getting it done in so many different ways, not exactly a crazy deep ball or a long ball or anything like that. But what we saw from Tez Johnson is everything that Bucs fans and the Bucs organization imagined. He can make the catch, and he held on to the freaking ball because another guy named Johnson playing wide receiver couldn't hold on to the ball for a second. Trey Palmer couldn't really hold on to the ball either, but he was making catches. He was getting open in space, and he was still making people miss. One of the best plays, it wasn't a big game, but that screen pass to him where he was dead to right, should have been a 2-yard loss, ended up being a 2-yard gain. It just shows that if you get him the ball in any capacity, he'll make people miss. And when you're already having a hard time covering Mike Evans, covering Emeka Buka, Sterling Shepard's talking and yapping in your ear play after play after play, because that's what he does. And when you go through all of that BS, then all of a sudden, here comes Tez Johnson, and he's going to make you look silly when attempting to tackle him. So even though the Bucs lost this game, there was a lot of backups. Tasmania, as his social media says as well. I look at this with more positives than necessarily negatives from this game, just based on who we wanted to see and who excelled. I thought that was a good sign for Tampa Bay.
For sure. And for the Traskaholics out there, I mean, Kyle Trask looked good. 13 of 17, 93 yards, a touchdown. He went 3 preseason games without any turnovers. And this is the first time in his career he's not had, an interception or a fumble in the preseason. So this was a very clean, efficient performance for Kyle Trask. I've said it before, I'll say it again. He is the backup quarterback. I think Teddy Bridgewater starts the season on the practice squad. And again, if there is a long-term injury to Baker Mayfield, it reshuffles the deck, right? Because then that's where Bridgewater's experience comes into play. But I think this team and Todd Bowles feels like Kyle Trask can get them out of a game. If something happens to Baker Mayfield in the second, third quarter, whatever, Kyle Trask can get them out of a game, and hopefully with a win. And then you evaluate Teddy's experience versus Kyle's grasp of the offense, rapport and chemistry with these receivers that he's thrown to for years now. but I thought he played very well tonight. And so for the Traskaholics, get drunk on some Kyle Trask tonight, because I thought he did what he needed to do. And I hate to say it, I was looking forward to seeing Teddy Bridgewater tonight. I was looking forward to kind of a more fair fight, a more of a head-to-head situation where both of you guys have backup offensive linemen in front of you. Both of you guys are throwing to backup wide receivers and handing off to backup running backs and throwing to backup tight ends, and then made the best man win. That didn't materialize. Teddy Bridgewater, as Todd Bowles said after the game, is extremely ill.
Yeah. He really intensified the prognosis of Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, exactly. So you probably think stomach bug or flu or something like that. So it's unfortunate, but again, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be part of this team. It just, whether it's on the 53 or the practice squad, we'll see.
Yeah, and good for Kyle Trask. I'm with you, and you had said it on the WFLA pregame show, Bucs Bonus, that it would have been a fair fight because it would have been the backups for each quarterback with Teddy Bridgewater and Kyle Trask. But you know what? Kyle Trask needed a bounce-back game after that really, honestly, crappy performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he did what he needed to do today. Was it the most epic of throws and stuff like that? No, but hey, he hit the wide open man. He made a great throw in the pocket, knowing he was going to get hit for a first down. I think that was important. And there's this funny thing with Kyle Trask. I don't know why, because the offensive line, pass protection-wise, has done a pretty good job. But this weird thing happens with Kyle Trask every time where it's like, Kyle, remember, you got to get rid of the football after he gets sacked one time. It's like, hey, Kyle, you got to get rid of it. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I do have to get rid of it. It's like he needs that one sack to remind him to get that internal clock going. And then he's fine after that. So he took that sack early and then went back to, okay, I got to go and get rid of the ball. And again, some of the throws to Tez Johnson, that was good on Tez Johnson just getting open or getting it to the running back or whatever the case may be. But he made the throws. It was a good touchdown throw as well. It's Kyle Trask's job. I don't think the chapter or the book is closed with Teddy Bridgewater in terms of if the Bucs get to a situation where someone else has to play besides Baker Mayfield, and hopefully we don't cross that bridge unless it's like, hey, the Bucs won the division, they got the number 1 seed locked up, and we got an extra game to go. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you got to be happy with what Kyle Trask did today, and that's a great point about no turnovers because that's really all you want from your backup quarterback when they're in the game.
Exactly. Don't screw it up. Lose the game. Yeah, that's it. You're right, man. And I hope once we get to September, we don't even mention Kyle Trask or Teddy Bridgewater. It's all Baker Mayfield, for 20 games or so, right? That would be ideal. I would say that the other person really kind of stood out and, no familiar to pewterreport.com readers, because we do a Bucs training camp diary with him, is Elijah Roberts. Really, I think the arrow's pointing up for this guy. Had his first sack tonight. He told me the game's slowing down for him. He's kind of like Logan Hall 2.0, right? He played defensive end in college. He's moving inside now. He's a bigger version of Logan Hall. He's 290 pounds, where Logan came in like literally 265, 270, and really had to work on his body. But Elijah Roberts is a bigger dude and needs to play the run better. There's no doubt about it. He's got to get used to those double teams and he's got to anchor down a little bit better. As he told me after the game, I'm 6'4". I got to play like I'm 6'2". Like I've got to get my pad level, hands and feet, all in coordination. But this kid really wants it. He's hungry. His confidence after this game is sky high, and he doesn't think he's going to make the team. he said, like whatever they think, 53 practice squad, I'm like, I think you're making the team, Elijah. He's like, for your mouth to God's ears, speak it into existence.
I like the mentality, though.
Yes. Yeah. He's confident in his ability, but again, he understands that his last name is Roberts, not Bowles, right? He doesn't have a say whether he makes the team or not. But I think the film and his draft pedigree, he's too much of a good pass rusher for him not to make it. And really, you look at the defensive linemen, they're going to keep 6, right? And we know who those are. Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, Logan Hall, those are your first 3. Greg Gaines is the backup nose tackle. He's making it at number 4. Then you have 2 reserve spots. I think Roberts is head and shoulders above everybody else. So I think he makes it his defensive tackle 5. You probably agree with that, Matt. And then 6, it's going to go down to special teams. It's going to go down to the film. Is it Adam Gotsis? Is it CJ Brewer? Is it Mike Green? Eric Banks? There's a whole cast of characters that it could be, but I do think Elijah Roberts made the team. And again, the Titans game was okay. The Steelers game was good.
Mm-hmm.
This Bills game tonight was even better. So the arrow's pointing up for Elijah Roberts. I think that he will be on this team and probably a factor on special teams and maybe a situational rusher a little bit. Logan Hall's in a contract year.
Yeah.
This might be Logan Hall's replacement as that defensive tackle number 3, maybe later this year, but probably next year.
Elijah Roberts can move, and that's a great thing for defensive tackles because the Bucs have some quick defensive tackles. I mean, we've talked about how Kalijah Cansey can be lightning speed, and Vita Vea can certainly move for a guy his size. And I like that Elijah Roberts is already a pass rusher because I think you can figure out the run technique and the run fundamentals that Todd Bowles was talking about with Elijah Roberts after. I'd rather have a defensive lineman, or really any defensive lineman edge rusher. I'd rather have them better at getting after the quarterback and figuring out how to stop the run versus a good run stopping defensive lineman who doesn't have any pass rushing skills. Because, that's what Greg Gaines is. Greg Gaines can go and stop the run. If CJ Brewer or Mike Green make this team, they're going to be involved in stopping the run. That's why you have linebackers too. They got to help there as well. So I thought that was a good sign from Elijah Roberts to, he's had some good practices too with pressures on the quarterback, but you can't go and actually hit the quarterback. And, you don't know until you actually do it in a game because you got to avoid things like putting your body weight on the quarterback or hitting too high and things like that. So, good for him. The overall pass rush, I thought, was interesting at times. There's a little bit of close but no cigar, which we've seen this team plenty of times, but they were able to get there with Elijah Roberts, which was good to see.
Speaking of pass rush, let's go to some super chats, Matt, because we have some people want to talk about the pass rush here. Chris
Mark Fisher, the Reverend, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, so number 43 for 3 games, talking about Chris Braswell, has done little against backups, not promising. Also, I guess none of our backup linebackers can cover a running back in the flat. 15 more days.
Yeah, I got to go back and watch the tape because admittedly, I wasn't watching Chris Braswell every single snap. I saw some pass rushes that, again, if you have the expectation as a second-round pick, right? I mean, when you're in the top 50, 60 players drafted, you have to, when you're playing into the second quarter of the third and final preseason game against backups, you should be the stud on the field. And I don't know that he was that tonight. And again, it's pressures against backup offensive tackles are one thing, but sacks are another, right? Getting to the quarterback, maybe forcing a fumble with a sack fumble, that would be a little bit more exciting. So guess what? When you go into Atlanta and Houston and the Jets come to town and the Eagles come to town, the starting offensive linemen in those games are going to be the starting offensive linemen. They're not going to be second and third string players playing in the third and fourth quarter, right? Mm-hmm. You got to show that you can beat starting caliber offensive tackles. And I don't know that Chris Braswell has really done that this preseason. So you better hope that nothing happens to Hassan Reddick and Yahya Diaby, because if one of those guys goes down and Braswell's put into the starting lineup, I don't see him producing a lot of heat on the quarterback. I think it's going to be a big drop off. And I think there's going to be a big drop off from the first group of offensive or outside linebackers to the second with Anthony Nelson and Chris Braswell. The loss of David Walker is going to be felt all season long. He was going to be that guy. And, you can do what it could have, should have all you want. He's on injured reserve. He's not coming back till next year. But I'm not jazzed about Chris Braswell like I want to be.
Yeah, if we're ranking his 3 preseason games, this is probably his second best preseason game. He had the sack last week in Pittsburgh, and obviously he was terrible against the Titans in week 1. He had 2 pretty good rushes tonight. One that could have been called for a holding penalty if the referee felt inclined to do so, but they didn't. So, wasn't really on the box score too much, didn't have a sack. At the same time, maybe it was a hold, but you're going up against these. Again, you're a second-round pick. You're going up against these fourth-string offensive tackles. you should be able to get through a hold and still
I
get
agree.
to the quarterback. So it is a concern once he's going up against the starters. There's just not that electricity to his
No, there's not.
pass rushing game that we even saw from Yaya, even though Yaya didn't
Right.
really start playing until, ironically, that Thursday night game against the Buffalo Bills a couple of seasons ago. He just doesn't have it right then and there just yet. It almost feels like if you have a lighter and trying to flick it, you're trying to get that flame going, you're barely even getting a spark. You're getting an occasional spark from Chris Braswell. But you need more than that for the regular season. Again,
you do
with these Super Bowl aspirations that this team has.
And he's not a finished product. He's not a finished product. Larry Foote's going to continue to work with him. I'm not saying he is a finished product and he's just not good. It's just right now he's not good enough.
Bucs Basement, thanks for the $5 super chat. Says, hope Reddick doesn't go down at any point this season. If he does, we're back to last year's pathetic edge rush. Braswell was a reach in the second round.
I think right now, I think that's fair. The story's not finished. He still has some chapters to write. He's only in his second year. So, we're not going to, if you want to write it in pencil, that's fine. But I mean, we're not going to put it in pen just yet. Because again, he's not even finished his second year. He's entering his second year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think maybe the saving grace in all this is you do have a good blitzer in Levante David. You do have a good blitzer in Sebastian Dennis. I mean, his first sack was against Jaden Daniels. That's a trophy sack. He's really hard to get down. Ask Elijah Cansey. You have Cansey. You have Vita Vea. You've got two really good interior pass rushers. You have Antoine Winfield Jr. that can blitz from the edge and the slot. Todd Bowles, we've seen him manufacture some pass rush, but you hope that Chris Braswell does not have to be a starter, that Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby can go wire to wire and start every game.
Yeah, and if Yaya Diaby, don't count him out just yet. I know he had kind of a down year last season, but if Yaya Diaby elevates his game and kind of picks up from what he did as a rookie 2 seasons ago, that will vastly improve the pass rush as well with Hassan Reddick on the other side. So, yes, Chris Braswell is a component of this, but at the same time, if you get the Yaya who finished out his rookie year 2 seasons ago, the pass rush overall is in a much better spot. And it also, the Bucs still end up top 10 in sacks because of the blitzing prowess of the whole team and Todd Bowles calling it. So they'll find ways to get to the quarterback.
Agreed.
Mark Fisher, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. Says Cam Johnson lost his shot with that drop by the end zone. I still like him, though. Any chance for him to be on the practice squad, or is it sayonara? So Cam Johnson, him and Trey Palmer, I had them both on the most disappointing list because these were guys that missed a lot of training camp, missed the first 2 preseason games, have an uphill battle to make this team, even more so for Cameron Johnson. And it wasn't even the drop at the end in the corner of the end zone, which I still think he should have had watching the replay. Rondé was saying that he was a little too outstretched. But he had 2 drops early on the same drive. One was just a slant across the middle that would have been a first down. The other one, it was a third down, 2 yards away from the end zone. Yeah, the defender hit him, but there's at least 2 seconds where he could have held it, caught it, held on to it, and then braced himself for the hit and didn't get the job done. The only thing I might save Cameron Johnson is he was great with his punt return and specifically his kick return. His kick return set up the Bucs for a field goal.
57 yards.
Yeah, so was the return enough saving grace to get him a spot on the practice squad? I don't know, because you got Tez Johnson. Josh Williams looked really good as a returner today, too. I think you say, he's electric enough where you give him a spot on the practice squad. But again, with all these other receivers ahead of him, might be one of the last practice squad spots.
Yeah, I think what you said is true. And I think, honestly, what helps his cause is the fact that Ryan Miller will probably start on the 53, right? Yeah. That helps his cause because that kind of creates a practice squad spot for another wide receiver. Garrett Green might be a guy that they're going to keep on the practice squad. And maybe you put him on the practice squad too. The thing with Cam Johnson, though, going back to last year, was he was oft injured.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, this team's patience is going to run out. If you continue to be injured, you can't help the club in the tub, and they're going to move on. And so He helped himself tonight. Was it enough to make the practice squad? We'll see. He's kind of like, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to be one of these guys that wire to wire in practice, he can't suffer any injuries. He's got to put all those injuries behind him and stay healthy. Because I think if he is on the practice squad and he pulls a hammy in practice or something like that, they're just going to wave the guy injured and say, you can't stay healthy. You're not taking care of your body. Something's wrong. But we're done. Our patience is up, and we're going to go with somebody else. So this is truly, he's hanging on by a thread on the practice squad. And I think if they're going to keep him, he has got to stay healthy throughout the entire season. But when he is healthy, he's got some speed and athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, we loved him. We loved him last year, but he got hurt last year, and he's been hurt this year as well. And it's not just getting hurt; it's getting injured when, like, the pads were barely on just yet, and all these non-contact injuries have been difficult. Daniel Fisher. Don't know if there's any relation to Mark Fisher, who feels very differently about this player, but thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Says Braswell looked good tonight. It's one of those things we got to go back and kind of watch. Like, sure, I see him when I'm watching the defense and stuff like that, but didn't have a sack. I don't even think registered a QB hit.
Did he even have a tackle?
Let's see.
I don't know if he had a tackle.
Chris Braswell. Not seeing him on
He didn't have a tackle.
No. Jose Ramirez had 4 tackles.
Yeah.
Marquise Watts had 3.
I mean, production's not always everything, but it should be something. And again, we're not talking about, a 4th or 5th round pick. We're talking about a 2nd round pick. The expectations have to be higher.
Yeah.
The production has to be more.
How many snaps he played too. But
he was playing into the second quarter. I know that. So he played a good deal in the first half. Yeah.
Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Tez Jedi Johnson. That is his new nickname.
He was using the force tonight a little bit, wasn't he? Doing the flip and just kind of making guys miss. I mean, he's an exciting player, man. He really – we saw it at the Senior Bowl, Matt. We said this is a guy that really kind of stood out against the competition at the Senior Bowl. To be honest, when the Bucs were on the clock in the 7th round, I completely forgot about Tez Johnson. When we're into day 3, you know what I mean? Like, we're into day 3. Like, I'm forgetting who's coming off the board, right? Because I'm not looking at other teams because we're doing stories. We're on the draft show and all of that, and I completely forgot he was even on the board. And so when the Bucs picked him, I'm like, holy crap, he's still around! Like, that's a genius pick, and it's just he's making Jason Light look like the genius that he is. But I mean, it's almost criminal what Jason Light is doing in these drafts. It's just he's stealing players. He's stealing good players, not just in 1st and 2nd round and day 2 guys, but he's just pilfering day 3 players. Cade Otton, Servassier Dennis, Bucky Irving, Tez Johnson. I think it's safe to say that David Walker would have been that guy this year too. Elijah Roberts. I mean, I like the day 3 guys this year as much as I do the day 1 and the day 2 guys. I think Parrish is going to be great. I think Benjamin Morrison's been a huge disappointment, not because the player is a disappointment, just because
the availability.
We haven't been able to see him. Yes. Yeah. I'm not saying Benjamin Morrison is the disappointment. His injury, his lack of availability has been a disappointment. I wanted to see Benjamin Morrison go head-to-head against Jamel Dean and maybe take that cornerback job and make some plays. I wanted to see him come up with an interception or 2 in the preseason. And we got robbed of that because of this hamstring injury. And you just have to hope that he's not another oft-injured cornerback like Jamel has been, But Jacob Parrish is a hell of a good player. Emeka Ibuka is an absolute stud. But having said that, David Walker, Elijah Roberts, Tez Johnson, I'm just as excited about those guys and their potential this year and in the future.
And Tez Johnson is just a dude that's so comfortable with who he is as well. Like, he's electric in interviews and press conferences. And that doesn't mean like you're going to be a great player in the league, but he has all the confidence in the world in himself that, not many 7th-round picks probably have when they're trying to earn a spot on this team. So it's just credit to the type of player and person that he is. Moving along, Bucs Basement with the $5 super chat. Thank you. Says Bridgewater shouldn't make the team. Trask has 2 good games, solid in both games. Bridgewater had 1 game, was sick, they're putting in parentheses, and cost McMillan 9 weeks.
Listen, I get a hard time. This is football, man. This is a collision sport. I mean, yeah, he had to. J-Mac had to climb the ladder for a high pass from Teddy Bridgewater, but nobody knew that he was going to get undercut like that and land on his neck. That was a freak fluke injury. I'm not going to blame Teddy Bridgewater for that. Was it a high throw? Yes, but J-Mac still caught it.
Right.
And
first down.
I mean, 99 times out of 100, J-Mac's going to land, get up, and he's going to be okay. That was just a freak fluke injury, the way he fell. It's a shame, but I mean, you can't sit there and blame Bridgewater for that, and certainly didn't do it on purpose. And it was truly an accident. It's just like, I remember John Lynch broke his hand one time because he and Warren Sapp came in, and Sapp's helmet hit Lynch's hand when they were both making a tackle on a running back. It's like, was that Warren Sapp's fault that his helmet hit his hand? No, it was an accident. I mean, you didn't want to do that. It's just, it happens. Football is not a contact sport. It is a collision sport, and stuff's going to happen, and it's just an unfortunate stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't the most ideal throw, but, there wasn't malice behind it. It was just a really unfortunate moment. And it's not like Todd Bowles behind the scenes is going to be like, how dare you? You did that on purpose. Get off this team. Whatever. Teddy Bridgewater is helping make this team better, whether it's going to be preparing with Baker Mayfield, pushing Kyle Trask as a backup. So, I don't know. Kyle Trask is going to make the team. So, you're right. Bridgewater isn't going to make the team, but should he not just because of the throw to Jalen McMillan? No, it was a bad situation. And unfortunately, the Bucs have to deal with. But at the same time, they got a really good team that can overcome it. Yeah. Ezo813, thanks for this $10 super chat. Says, although Trask didn't necessarily look bad tonight, he still looks like the exact same quarterback from 2023, competing with Mayfield for the starting spot. I still trust Teddy over Trask, hands down. I get what you're saying, because while he does know the offense and he knows a lot of his personnel, I still sometimes am like, that's it? There's not a little bit more? Yeah. Whether it's the pocket presence or holding on to it too long. He knows, I don't know, he knows the offense enough. And, maybe he isn't just a starting caliber type of quarterback. But, I don't know. It's tough to compare.
He's a backup
one game
quarterback
versus 3.
Yeah.
But Teddy Bridgewater
in this league.
Teddy Bridgewater looked better than Kyle Trask in this preseason, even though it was one game.
I agree.
But again, because of contracts and things like that, Kyle Trask is going to be on this team. But I totally get what you're saying, Hezo, because Bridgewater looked comfortable. The throws, minus the one to Jalen McMillan, a lot of the timing and stuff. I would want Teddy Bridgewater, if the Bucs needed to win one game to win the Super Bowl or whatever, give him a full week of preparation, or I guess the full season, and then 1 week to prepare. I'd probably go Bridgewater over Kyle Trask.
Yeah. I will say this. I'm here at Raymond James Stadium. My college football team, Kansas State Wildcats, we lost to Rocco Becht and Iowa State Cyclones again. We're 0-3 in our last 3 Farmageddons. Today was over there in Ireland, and it was a crappy football game day for me. But I will say this. At this stadium, on Thursday night, I think I'm coming to this one, folks. It's going to be Boise State coming into Raymond James Stadium to play the hometown USF Bulls.
Facing pressure. Ransom's going down. Get your South Florida football tickets today.
Yeah, you can scan that QR code right there to purchase some tickets. It's a 5:30 kickoff on Thursday. It's an interesting start time, but the Bulls are going to be all blacked out in their new uniforms, new black helmets that look really cool. against number 25 ranked Boise State coming in. No Ashton Genty. I think the Bulls have a puncher's chance in this game. And they really kind of need to win this game, Matt, because they have back-to-back games against Florida and Miami in consecutive weeks. So you don't want to start the season 0-3. This is, I want to say it's a winnable game. I'm not sure if they're going to win, but you know what? It's going to be a fun game to watch. And why not kick off the football season? If you live in the Tampa Bay area, get your butt to Raymond James Stadium and watch USF against Boise State on Thursday night, August 28th. 5:30 kickoff. Scan the QR code to purchase. They've got a great slate of home games this year. The FAU game will be the homecoming game in October. So check out the Bulls as they take on Boise State Thursday, August 28th at Raymond James Stadium.
Moving along with these super chats, KGH for life, thanks for the $5, says, I thought Braswell was going to shock the world. What's up? Bucs should sign Clowney or Zadarius Smith for depth.
I think Zadarius Smith's probably going to re-sign with Detroit. I was talking with some of my sources, and that's kind of what the buzz around the NFL is. Clowney might be an option, though. They got to do something. They're going to look at the waiver wire. Remember, Jason Light's got a couple waiver wire guys before. 2014, it was Jackie Smith. 2018, it was Carl Nassib. So they are looking for another edge rusher. I can tell you that, and we'll see if they find one.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot where you got to thread the needle a little bit, right? Because if you got to let Braswell at least prove that he can or can't do it, at least early on in the season. But at the same time, you can't wait too long because another team could go out and sign these players.
Yeah. Right.
So, it's a little bit of a tough thing to go about. Samuel Fisher.
Let's just skip this one. Just skip Samuel Fisher,
please.
$10
super chat. Happy Farmageddon, Scott. Been in the process of opening a restaurant here in Ankeny, Iowa. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. So I've been out of the loop for the past couple of weeks. Is there an update on the Benjamin Morrison injury? Go Bucs.
Hopefully he's back soon, like before the start of the season. I mean, he's missed the entire preseason with a hamstring injury. So I hope that he's going to be back soon. Samuel, just for you, I will share with you what I texted Anthony Becht. Of course, that's Rocco Becht's dad, played tight end for the Jets and for the Buccaneers. I texted Anthony Becht this earlier this afternoon after Farmageddon. I said, here's an idea. Rocco enters the 2026 NFL draft. So we can finally have a chance of beating Iowa State. Laugh out loud. And I said, please tell Rocco, I said, congratulations on the win. Hopefully we get a rematch in the Big 12 championship game. Anthony says, he texted me back, haha, thanks, Scott. I will let him know. I love Anthony Becht, one of my favorite Buccaneers up covered during his time in Tampa Bay. I love Rocco. I coached him one year in Pop Warner. He was a quarterback for us. He went to my kids' high school, Wiregrass Ranch. I wish Rocco Becht nothing but the best 364 days out of the year. Just one day out of the year. I just can't stand him, and today was that day. But congratulations to the Cyclones. Very hard-fought game, very entertaining, but they got the win again.
Yeah, nice back-and-forth game. Way to start the college football season over in Dublin. Paul Morales, thanks for the $1.99 super chat, says, thoughts on Baker not playing at all in the preseason?
Matt, I'm going to let you handle this one because you really saw him play in that joint practice in Pittsburgh, and Todd Bowles was so enamored in that he said, we liked what he did enough to where we're not going to play him in the Pittsburgh game at all.
Yeah, it's funny because Baker is a guy that just loves playing. And he said it at a press conference at some point during training camp. He's like, I just like football. Like, I want to play because of that. He spoke with Chris Myers and Rondé tonight on the broadcast and was saying that he wanted to get into this game, but Todd Bowles put the kibosh on that one. But Baker also talked about, and I saw it too, like all the work that they put in with these joint training camp practices, whether it was Tennessee a couple of weeks ago or in Pittsburgh last Thursday when it was going on. And they're getting a ton of reps. They're getting a ton of looks and more looks that they would see than if Baker went in for, 2 drives in the preseason and, you got the offensive line and everything like that. It's also a little new to Baker Mayfield, but I think with the quarterback position, more than anything else, I mean, we just saw it at wide receiver with Jalen McMillan. We saw it a little bit at running back with Rashad White. you have to make sure your quarterback is ready to go for the regular health-wise. And I think with all the work that they put in during practice and especially during joint training camp, Baker's going to be good to go and ready to go. And, the Bucs aren't the only team that doesn't play their quarterback.
Michael Penix didn't play either, man. Am I wrong?
What's up?
Michael Penix didn't play either this preseason,
right?
Did he?
Who do you think needs more work in the preseason, Michael Penix Jr. or Baker Mayfield? So, certainly getting a couple reps here and there is fine, but overall, I think Baker Mayfield has been in this league long enough. As soon as the adrenaline starts kicking in that first game against Atlanta, he's going to be absolutely fine. Maybe the first drive or two, there's a little bit of rust, but he's been playing football his entire life. He's been playing at a high level the last 2 years, especially. I don't think it's going to be anything like by the third game. No one's going to be like, well, Baker didn't play a lot in the preseason or at all, and therefore the team is struggling. It might be a one drive issue, and then he'll be fine.
I agree. You look at most NFL games, you have somewhere between 10 to 12 possessions, right, in a game. And all those possessions are important. All of them count, right? But I've never seen a team lose a game in the first quarter, right? If you're not sharp in the first or second drive and you have to shake some of that rust off, like you said, you're going to have probably 8 to 10 more drives to get into rhythm, right? So I think that Baker's going to be okay. He's a seasoned veteran. He knows this offense. He's thrown passes to every single one of these receivers in games, with the exception of Tez Johnson and Emeka Egbuka. So I'm perfectly fine with Baker Mayfield not playing in the preseason.
Mates McGee, thank you for this $2 super chat. Says, is there a chance they would trade or cut Sean Tucker?
No.
They're not cutting Sean Tucker. It would have to be an unreal trade. But you know what? I think the better question or conversation is, do they keep a fourth running back on this roster with Josh Williams? Because after Tez Johnson, who certainly was the superstar of tonight, Josh Williams was the second best offensive player outside of Kyle Trask. And Connor Baszler was actually pretty good at quarterback too tonight. But Josh Williams as a returner, I thought was very impressive. Pretty good on the ground, 8 rushing attempts for 28 yards for a 3.5 average. Josh Williams is going to make it very, very difficult to not keep on this team, because I don't know every other running back situation for other teams in the league, but he would certainly be a guy that could be poached and put on another team's 53-man roster. We've talked about how good this guy can be, and he's really proved it after missing the first preseason game. He's had 2 really good games, in my opinion, wearing a Bucs uniform.
Yeah, he's kind of a steady Eddie, right? He's a chain mover. He's got really good vision, slippery runner, but also runs with some power behind his pads. Probably an ideal number 3 running back. And I say that because if you look at the roster this year, if they can keep him on the 53, I think they want to. I think that he brings enough special teams value as a returner. And you know what? The thing is Todd Bowles likes having running backs back there as kick returners. We know Sean Tucker is going to be one of those kick returners. I would be fine with Josh Williams and Sean Tucker being the 2 kick returners.
Yeah.
That gives this team guys that have a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of power, and you have some breakaway speed with Sean Tucker. And I think Josh Williams could probably be a good lead blocker for him if the ball went to Tucker. I'm definitely in favor of that. I kept Josh Williams on my 53-man roster and my SR-SPAP 5 column on Friday. I had them keeping 4 running backs. We'll see if that ends up happening. More importantly, Matt, we all believe this is going to be Rachaad White's last year in Tampa. He's probably going to want more opportunities and more money. And I'm not sure the Buccaneers are really looking to throw a bunch of money at a backup running back, because Bucky Irving, this is his show as the starter. But you really love to have Josh Williams in the hopper for next year, and him just move up to number 3 when Sean Tucker moves up to number 2. In the long-term planning, that's what Jason Light and Todd Bowles and Josh Grizzard, I think, envision. So if they can keep him on the 53 this year, then he'll be running back 3 next year. And the beauty of that is is that's one less draft pick you have to spend on a running back, right?
Yeah.
That's one more draft pick you can spend somewhere else when you sit there and walk into the season, just like this year, and you say, we already have running backs 1, 2, and 3. We don't need to draft the running back. And I think if they do that again next year, that'll really put them in a good position when it comes to the draft.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, they could spend a pick like on an edge rusher that they might need or another defensive tackle,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Got some big time super chats from Mopar Bucks. So thank you for this 1999 super
Thank you,
chat.
Mopar.
Says, how is Braswell our starter, but can't seem to beat backups? This is not what I was expecting to see when coaches say he's made strides. We are weak at edge.
From a starter standpoint, I feel like they're pretty strong. Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick. That's a nice 1-2 punch. They're going to do some good things this year on the edge. After that, when those guys aren't in the game, then it gets dicey to me. And I believe everything you're saying here, Mopar. I'm not – Chris Braswell did not wow me in this preseason. He did not live up to the hype. You had Jason Light hyping him up, Todd Bowles hyping him up, Larry Foote to a degree on our podcast Thursday night. At the same time, though, when you're a position coach, you have to hype up your guys. You have to keep their confidence high. You are going to get some coach speak there for sure. But again, there's a reason why they drafted David Walker in the 4th round. Mm-hmm. They'd already signed Hassan Reddick. They already had Yaya Diaby. They had their starters. They drafted David Walker because they weren't sure about Chris Braswell. And that was going to be the guy. And now that you don't have David Walker, I think you need to go out and get a guy to replace David Walker and really boost that second line. If I'm a quarterback, if I'm an offensive coordinator, if I'm an offensive tackle, I'm not scared of Anthony Nelson and Chris Braswell on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, whatever. I'm just not.
I think if you look at each position group on this team, the depth at edge rusher after the starters is maybe, if not first, like the second weakest depth on this team. So the Bucs have to go out and address this unless they truly believe that Chris Braswell might go down as the rare example, because the Bucs have been great of like drafting a player doesn't work out and saying, you know what, we made a mistake and we're going to move on and fix it. Braswell, now it would only be 2 seasons, but that might be an example of someone that maybe they took a little bit too long to be like, oh, well, you know what? He isn't our guy.
Well,
let's fix it.
Again,
and they're not going to cut him, but I mean, just like finding
Right.
someone ahead of him.
I think they did that with David Walker. I think David Walker was because Chris Braswell had a sack and a half, just like with Logan Hall. They drafted him with the first pick in the draft that they had, which was the 22nd overall, or 32nd or 33rd overall, the first pick in the second round. They gave him 1 year. What did he have? 2.5 sacks, something like that. They drafted Kalijah Kancey the next year in the first round because they didn't think Logan Hall was a starting caliber defensive tackle, and he's not. And I agree with that philosophy. You know, you can give guys time to develop, but hope is not a strategy. You've got to make sure that you can go out there and get the job done. And I saw that back in '97. Rondé Barber was horrible as a rookie cornerback. They spent a 2nd round draft pick on Brian Kelly the next year in 1998 because Rondé looked so bad. So, and then you give Rondé time to develop, and Rondé became Rondé. He became better than Brian Kelly. But you can't wait for guys to just show up, and then they never do. Like with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, never showed up.
Yeah, it's all very true. We have another 1999 super chat from Mopar Buck. So thank you very, very so much, Mopar Buck, who says, for a team who has their Super Bowl window open, we shouldn't have this many unknowns, uncertainties on the defensive side of the ball. Everything can't always be a magical free agency signing. Draft the guys you're supposed to. I think overall, though, they've kind of set everything up pretty well.
Yeah.
Like they drafted 2 corners. Corner was thin, weak, whatever you want to say going into the draft. They drafted 2 corners. They re-signed Bryce Hall. They signed another with Kindle Vildor. They had a good situation going at safety. After Tyke and Antoine Winfield Jr., J.J. Roberts looked like a star as an undrafted free agent, but now he's out for the season. So, I wouldn't say there was that many like unknowns and uncertainties. It was just after a while, like when players get injured, there's gonna be unknowns and uncertainties, but they can't control when people are gonna get season-ending injuries.
Yeah, Lux Gaming says Light needs to just acknowledge that Edge is his blind spot and embrace trading for proven pass rushers. He's had better luck in trades and free agency for sure, but keep in mind, I would rag him for years about his inability to find a good running back in the draft. I mean, he had so many whiffs: Keyshawn Vaughn, Jeremy McNichols, Ronald Jones, Charles Sims. And then all of a sudden hits on Rashad White and Bucky Irving, and then finds Sean Tucker as an undrafted free agent. So let's give him some credit. We believe, too, David Walker was going to be that turnaround pick for the edge position. That's a very unfortunate injury. He was going to play a lot this year. J.J. Roberts was a great find at undrafted free agency. He was going to play a lot this year. So they've tried to, and I think their depth is better on defense.
Yeah.
Then, if Elijah Roberts is your fifth defensive tackle, he was better than the fifth defensive tackle last year. So the cornerback, there's more talent there. Safety, I think, is still a bit of a concern. We haven't really talked about Shiloh Sanders.
Yeah,
Matt, we probably should. It's an unfortunate situation for him. He really needed to play 4 quarters tonight to show something other than missing some tackles. And he had to make some splash plays. And for all of the football that he's played, he started his career at South Carolina. He played a couple years at Jackson State with his dad. Then he goes to Colorado for a year and plays and comes here. His dad is an NFL player. He's got to know. I know, everybody knows. It's the second guy that gets flagged. And you can't be throwing punches. You're going to get tossed out of the game. And it happened, in the first quarter, Matt?
It happened in the second quarter.
Early part of the second quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, there was like 6:59 to go in the second quarter when it happened.
Yeah, just that's not a good look. And I at no point in time has this guy made the 53-man roster. He was not in the running for the 53. And I know he's got a lot of fans, and I'm not crapping on Shiloh Sanders or whatever. I'm just telling you the truth. We have to go back to this team had J.J. Roberts in for a top 30 visit. They gave him a boatload of guaranteed money. They had a draftable grade on J.J. Roberts. Shiloh Sanders' agent, Drew Rosenhaus, called Jason Light or texted him, "Hey, can you sign my client?" And they talked about it, and they said, "Yes, we will." This was not a situation where the Bucs chased Shiloh. Shiloh chased the Bucs. They gave him the opportunity to come in. The kid is a great kid. He is happy-go-lucky. He loves football. He's a great teammate. There's so many positive things about Shiloh. His fan interactions are off the charts. He's incredibly popular. I get all that. He's not going to be evaluated for being a nice guy. He's not going to be evaluated for being a good teammate. He's not going to be evaluated as a social media influencer or how many followers he has. He's going to be evaluated in what happens on the gridiron, between the lines, with helmets and pads on. And quite frankly, it wasn't good enough. We saw some more missed tackles tonight. He's not an NFL player in terms of a 53-man roster guy just yet. Will he ever be that way? I don't know. He's not an incredible athlete either. J.J. Roberts is a far better athlete. J.J. Roberts was going to make the team. Shiloh was always going to try to make the practice squad. That was his path for getting on the Buccaneers, the practice squad. And I don't know if he's done enough plays. And I think that incident might have hurt him. Rashad Wisdom is a better safety, Matt, than Shiloh Sanders. Is there room for 2 safeties? Yes. Is there room for 2 safeties on the practice squad? We'll see. But if it comes down to 1 safety, I think Rashad Wisdom is that safety on the practice squad. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple of things with Shiloh, because even before he got ejected, just things were not going his way. Like, as you mentioned, the missed tackles. There were some blown coverages. I'm not blaming it just on Shiloh, but even after the receiver made the catch, Shiloh was he was behind the receiver, but kind of just stopped and didn't keep going after the receivers. What are you doing? You're supposed to tackle him. So he never had the coverage plays that you wanted from a guy that plays safety. Shiloh's bread and butter is
Yeah.
playing in the box, being up at the line of scrimmage and blitzing, getting after the quarterback and tackles for loss.
Yeah.
And he does that well, but, was already making the mistakes. And then, the NFL just put out a whole statement to everybody being like, we're going to crack down on sportsmanlike stuff and taunting and things like that. So what's in that realm of reasoning is like throwing punches as well. And I get it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Shiloh was like, you, bam, and like really wound up. It was kind of like some pushing and a little bit of like more swinging than actually cocking one back and throwing a punch. But the refs were right there too. Like, I get it. You're in the heat of the moment. But the refs were standing right at those two guys. Zach Davidson, the tight end for the Bills. I'm actually surprised they weren't offsetting penalties because Davidson was in the mix too. But you can't throw. As soon as he threw the punch, I was like, oh my God, like he's probably going to get ejected. And then it leaves the Bucs in a tough spot because they're already thin at the position. And now you're down to just 3 safeties, and Will Brooks was there for a week. The Bucs literally had situations where they signed a guy the day before, and he was playing corner. Kind of tough to ask the whole secondary to play at a high level when you literally just signed a player, and now he's got to go out there and cover the field for an entire quarter. They did what they could with it, but I mean, I don't know how you really justify Shiloh. As we said, had to have a good game, didn't even get to halftime before he got ejected. I don't know how you really justify him being on this team. Again, not from like a character issue or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
But
Good
who had the worst game between Kayvon Merriweather, Rashad Wisdom, and Shiloh Sanders?
Yeah.
The answer is Shiloh Sanders.
And here's the thing, Matt. What does Todd Bowles really put a lot of value in? Smart football players.
Yes.
Right? Smart football players. He puts a ton of value in being smart. And that was not a smart play. And then again, in this situation, you're right. They were already down safeties in this game and cornerbacks. And you saw Rashad Wisdom had to play nickel. He couldn't even play safety because they didn't have nickels in this game. So he hurt the team tonight. And I think that's what Todd Bowles is probably stewing about, is like, hey, that was a dumb play, first of all, but man, you really hurt the team because we had to play Will Brooks tonight, who just showed up in Tampa like a couple hours ago, right? So that's where it really hurts, is it just was not a smart play all the way around. But folks, what I will tell you is a smart play is when you go to Briar Greaves Insurance and you give them a call tomorrow at 813-876-4166 and say, hey, Scott Reynolds and Matt Matera and the Pewter Report podcast told me to give you guys a call and said that you could possibly save me some money on my homeowner's insurance and or my auto insurance. Can you check the rates for me and get me the best deal? And they're going to say, yeah, we're going to check your rates for free. And they're going to do the shopping. They have a ton of different agencies that they can rep in terms of insurance companies. And they're going to do the legwork for you. They're going to save you a bunch of time. And more importantly, they might save you some money. Isn't that worth your time? Isn't that worth one phone call to John or Sam or Briar Greaves and say, hey, can you just check real quick? This is what I'm paying for homeowners. This is what I'm paying for auto insurance. Make that call tomorrow. Save yourself some money, possibly. This is an insurance company that I use, that even Jason Light uses. So why don't you give Briar Greaves a call? It's a free call. There's no obligation. And if they can't save you money, no harm, no foul. But check out briargreavesinsurance.com tomorrow. Give them a call, 813-876-4166. Work with an independent agency you can trust. Family owned and operated here in Tampa. When you need to get them on the phone, they'll return your calls. They'll return your emails. They'll return your texts. This isn't like some big, huge company where you're calling and you're waiting on hold for 30 minutes to talk to an insurance agent. And it's really a call center and you don't have any relationship with them. I know John Greaves. I know Briar Greaves. I know Sam and everybody in the office. So protect your assets with a company that you can count on for homeowners, auto, flood, boat, or business insurance. Give Briar Greaves Insurance a call.
We got a lot of stuff coming up. There's going to be a Zoom press conference with Todd Bowles tomorrow. So we'll be covering that. We'll see if there's any updates about players returning or whatever Todd Bowles has to say. Roster cuts are right around the corner, so we will be covering all of that on pewterreport.com. Plus, a full slate of Pewter Report podcasts next week ahead of Labor Day weekend. And then sooner before you know it, the Bucs will have a regular season game. So there's still a lot to pay attention to on pewterreport.com. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video as well. What you thought of the game, who stood out to you, who do you think is going to make the team, who do you think won't make the team? Curious to see all of your thoughts and opinions on that topic. So that's going to do it for us on today's show, or tonight's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.